and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Well, I just found out we lost Richard Simmons. I feel like we need to at least take a moment of silence for that. What? Hang on, let me take that moment of silence. Thank you. PT, I feel like you need to break that to me a little lighter. Like, you just told me in my ear, hey, how about Richard Simmons dying? Like, dude, that's not something you say in passing. That's something that you sit me down and tell me you have something serious to say.
I was just trying to catch you up on the day, dude. It's been a crazy day. Donald Trump got shot at a rally in Pennsylvania. They took out the shooter. Meanwhile, I told you, crazy day. Also on top, you have a legend of Richard Simmons passing away. Dr. Ruth is gone. How you doing, Andrew? Welcome to the show.
We lost Dr. Ruth. Thank goodness Andrew's here. Man, I needed some sort of good news after that. Andrew Gombas, pro sports gambler at Bets and Picks MMA, joining us here on the BetQL Network. So while we're talking about some crazy news and not always in the most positive light, we were going back and forth, me and the boys on the show, on our Twitter feed on our text chain during the week. And our producer, Jake, was like, Conor McGregor's never fighting again, guys. He's not coming back. And at this point, I'm kind of leaning in that direction also. I know you're a gambling man. If I gave you a free $1 million, and we've talked about this plenty of times, would you put it on McGregor fighting at least one more time, or that he's done?
I would put it on him fighting one more time. I'm not as confident as I would have been, a few months ago saying that, but I still think he'll fight again. He just loves it so much. And I mean, even if it was 5 years from now, like he's a crazy guy and he loves fighting. I think he's at least got one more in him.
Do you feel like we're going to head towards still the same plan of Michael Chandler? Because, he's been having a tough couple of weeks as well, having to go through all this, and his career's been on hold for 2 years. Do you feel like that's still the plan that will go through, or do you feel like if there is another delay, like Chandler will eventually have to break and do something else?
Man, I think so, but if it doesn't, I mean, crazy. Chandler's waited so long, and the fights failed to come to fruition a couple of times. So I hope for his sake that that's what ends up happening. It seems like that's the direction they at least say they're going in, but who knows at this point? It's a big question mark still, which is surprising given the fact that the fight was supposed to happen a couple of weeks ago.
Dogs are barking, which means it's time to bet an underdog. I'm looking at Tracy Cortez tonight in the main event. Does that dog look good to you? Rose the favorite, Andrew, at minus 225.
I actually think Rose gets it done tonight. I like her in the spot because she has 5-round experience. She's fought the best of the best. I think she's at a good striking advantage here. She's fought in people like Zhang Weili, Amanda Ribas, who have attempted and even had success at times getting her to the ground, but she's been able to win those fights. And I don't think Cortez has, like, for example, the physicality that Zhang Weili has or the pure jiu-jitsu that Amanda Ribas has. And I also don't think she's as good of a striker as either of them. So I think Rose gets it done tonight.
What did is there any part of you when you're watching all the weight cut drama, did that weigh in your decision at all? Does it usually weigh in your decision when you bet fights? Does it depend on the fighter? Because it was kind of a crazy Friday leading into all this.
What if they cut off all their hair? Does that change anything?
Almost never. I think more often than not, it's a non-factor just because they have so long to recover before the fight. So even if you have a bad weight cut, a lot of times you're not fighting for 24 to 36 hours after your weigh-in. So I think that more often than not, it's a non-factor. I mostly try to ignore it unless I'm able to piece it to a reason, if that makes sense. Like, if someone misses weight, a lot of it's just speculation. Like, did they miss weight because they were hurt, because they were sick, because they weren't training hard, because they're so big they have to go up to the next weight class? Unless you are able to kind of piece the logic together, I think more often than not it makes more sense to look past it rather than try to make it like a main focus.
Andrew, our next pay-per-view, UFC 304, the main event is Leon versus Bilal. For some reason, nobody's interested in that fight. The co-main, the big guys going at it, Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades for the interim belt. The one that I'm the most interested, because I'm not sure which way I should put my money, is Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett. Where are you going to put your money that night? And how do you feel about Patty as a fighter?
Yeah, it's a very interesting fight because a few years ago, I would have said that Green wins easily. He's much better defensively. He's fast. He's just better technically. Patty's a big hitter, but he's very open to getting hit. And even though I do think that Bobby Green has regressed a bit, I still think that he's just so much better defensively. Like that to me is what stands out more than anything between the two of them. Like they both have some power. They're both like I don't think grappling will be too much of a factor here, just because neither of them are like ace offensive grapplers, and both of them are kind of are just all around pretty solid grapplers. So I kind of think that'll cancel itself out. I can't see either guy having a ton of wrestling success. So I think it plays out on the feet where I just trust Green defensively more. And I don't think it's hard to knock someone out it's hard to knock someone out when you can't hit them to the head. And I don't think Patty's just going to be able to have a ton of success landing head strikes here. So I like Green to get it done, but I would be a lot more confident if it was 32-year-old Bobby Green, for example.
Are you shocked at all, Andrew, that Bilal is a dog? I feel like a lot of the times you have a pretty even fight. Grapplers usually get the odds rub on things, and this is kind of an interesting case where Leon is getting that champion's respect. So what do you make of that, and how do you like Bilal's chances?
Yeah, that's another interesting fight, just because, or for a few reasons. One, they fought before. Short fight ended with a no contest, but it did seem like it was going pretty well for Leon. That being said, Bilal, I do think has improved over the years. I just think the biggest difference between them is athleticism and physicality. I think that's where Leon's biggest advantage lies. He's a better striker, and he's had some success now fighting he's had some success against grapplers, is what I'm trying to say. He beat Colby, he's beaten Usman now, and I think Bilal's best path to victory is him shooting takedowns. But I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to get them, and if he does get them, I don't think he's going to be able to hold Leon down for long periods of time. On the feet, I think Leon's clearly better. And like I said, I just think his athleticism disparity is pretty big. So I expect him to win the fight. I know he doesn't always necessarily separate in the sense that, he's not going out there and blowing guys out of the water or winning 50-44, but I just have a hard time seeing Bilal consistently winning rounds. I think Leon has more finishing upside, so I agree with Leon being the favorite.
Speaking of fights with kind of varying styles, Tom Aspinall puts his interim heavyweight belt on the line against Curtis Blades. I've been an Aspinall guy since day one. I look at the odds, and Aspinall's the favorite. No surprise there. I think it's done in one. I think Aspinall either knocks him out or maybe even ragdolls him and then punches him into the canvas. I don't think this one's that close.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. Aspinall is faster. He's a better striker. I just think he's more durable. I give him a lot of advantages here. He's looked really good lately. His trajectory has been fantastic. Blades is, he's not an easy fight for anyone in the division, but I think Aspinall is just the best guy right now, for lack of a better way to say that.
What do you it is interesting because it does feel like this is that interesting puzzle piece into what is going to happen with the heavyweight division. Like, do you feel like there's a shot if Aspinall is impressive enough that he could lure John Jones to fight him, or that John will be interested then in fighting him, down the road? Do you feel like this is going to be setting up for a Pereira matchup down the line? Like, how do you feel like all that that trio of Jones, Aspinall, Pereira, it all plays out? Because I feel like there's a lot of interest in a variance of those matches.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Jones versus Aspinall is probably never going to happen. Jones seems pretty dead set on fighting Stipe and then retiring, which, it is what it is at this point. I'm fine with that if that's the route he wants to go. I think Pereira could potentially have some legs to it. He's won 2 belts now. He's won them in impressive fashion. He could look to go for 3. There's some parity there, which I think would be interesting. I think Aspinall would win handedly, but it doesn't mean that it's not an interesting fight, nor that they shouldn't make the matchup. So I'd like to see that potentially down the line.
In kind of a dream world, and why not? It's sports radio here, so let's have a little bit of fun. Andrew Gombas joining us here on the BetQL Network. let's say John Jones says, screw it, I'm over the Stipe stuff. I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to go back to light heavyweight, and I want to fight Alex Pereira at his best. And Pereira would be licking his chops for that one. What do you think the odds would look like for that fight? Like, would John Jones be an underdog against Pereira at this point?
I think John Jones would still be a huge favorite over Pereira at this point. I would imagine so. Yeah, the grappling disparity between them is hilarious, and I don't mean that in an offensive way. I think Pereira is as good of a striker as it gets. He has great power in his hands. That being said, when people have tried to wrestle him, like, it has not looked good, and he's kind of avoided the good wrestlers in the division. Like, he fought Adesanya, he fought he just fought Jiri, who's a wild striker and not really much of a grappler. He just kind of like avoided some of those fights. Like, even Strickland, not a grappler. I feel like he jumped through a lot of those like mid-tier middleweights and light heavyweights who actually, in a sense, would have been harder fights for him than the guys at the top of the division. And again, I'm not trying to take away anything from Pereira. He's obviously a great fighter. He has a great legacy in MMA right now. I just think that there's holes in his game that still haven't been exploited yet. And I know it's crazy to say when the guy's a double champ, but I just think a style matchup like John Jones would be a nightmare for him.
Our producer Jake just got paid. He hit the Evan Elder fight because he pumped his fist and he started celebrating. I saw that, Jake. Evan Elder round 2 sub over Darius Flowers. So
yeah,
good
got that
you,
arm triangle. All right. It was a nasty one. He got in there. Is there any part of you, Andrew? You mentioned there, like, it kind of is what it is with Stipe and the John Jones thing, but like, it also is such a big fight. It doesn't really need the heavyweight championship. It's a little ridiculous. It feels like that it is for the heavyweight championship with all the time that's passed. Any part of you that wishes like they would just have the fight and then Aspinall and Pereira could fight for the real heavyweight championship? Because it does feel like if he is going to retire, what's the one of them having the belt?
How is John still the champ? That's crazy.
I agree with you guys 100%. That fight doesn't need a belt around it. It's the best fighter of all time versus arguably the best heavyweight of all time. You don't need to wrap the belt around him. Especially when guys aren't fighting like today's top contenders. They just don't need it. They could sell that fight regardless. That fight would be just as meaningful whether it was for a belt or for nothing. People know who John Jones and Stipe are based on their legacy. You don't need to put the belt. Like, sometimes I even forget that John Jones is champ. Like, in my head, Aspinall is. It's fun. I didn't even remember it until you said it, just because he's fought one time at heavyweight and it was a year and a half ago. And Stipe hasn't fought in 3-4 years now, something like that.
Well, it's also, it's like a weird thing. Like, if Gon, and like, what if Gon loses to Volkov? And it's like, okay, so John got the belt against a guy who lost to Volkov. It's like, I don't know. It feels weird. Make a goat. You made a BMF belt. Make a goat belt. Give them a gold goat. Yeah. Put that around their waist. Make a specialized belt. They've already done it once. Give them a little trinket, Sean, but you don't need to put a charade out there that this is some real title fight.
No charades, but I do like trinkets. Speaking of the BMF, we got like a minute left. Who do you want to see Max fight next? Because now he's the BMF and he's got some options, possibly fighting for a real belt or another belt.
I'd like to see him fight Topuria for the title. It's finally the time's finally come where someone was able to overthrow Volkanovski, and Max for years now has beaten everyone not named Volkanovski at 145. So I guess it's time to see. This is my opinion, would be Topuria cleaning out the division. He's already beaten Volk, who's pretty much beaten everyone. And if he beat Max is beating everyone not named Volk. So if you do that, you automatically wipe out the two best guys of the last, 5-10 years in the division, which would be a huge accomplishment considering, Topuria's pretty much gone unscathed through that division.
That's Andrew Gombas. Follow him, friend of the show, at Bets and Picks MMA. Great stuff as always, my guy. We'll get you back soon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it as always. Have a great night.
You got it, man. BT, I'm got to tell you, I'm kind of over the whole John Jones Stipe thing. Am I going to watch? Of course, and have a party for it and bet on it? Yeah. But am I nearly as excited? You know what it is? It's becoming Pacquiao Mayweather. Like, if this would have gone down a few years ago, both cool. If they would have done it again, a rematch, cool. At this point, it's like, this is becoming a little bit of old news. Let's either poop or get off the pot here.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's unfortunate because John got hurt. right? Like this is a legitimate injury. His pec tore off. This is not like a pinky toe that he could have fought through. He had a really legitimate injury. But I just, if he's gonna retire afterwards, then like, what's the point? And like even today, I'm like, what's going on with his Twitter? His thumb got chopped off. His finger's gone. Like a lot of weird stuff going on with John, as there always seems to be. And if his future isn't going to be past whatever this fight is, I'm excited about the fight because I think it's cool to have these historic like showdowns. But I would like them to. I really think they got to get some clarity with what the future of the division is going to be.
Don't exaggerate like that on a day like today. Talking about John Jones cut his thumb off. Like I know that he hurt it, but it didn't. He didn't cut his thumb off.
He did.
We lost Richard Simmons, dude. There is no joking today. All right, it's been a very serious day. We'll be back on the other side. We'll keep talking more fighting, and we'll keep making a little bit more money. It's the BetQL Network.